Hello, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. The sound of a violin echoed through the opulent hall of St. Augustine Chapel, where thousands of white roses and sparkling crystal chandeliers filled the air with elegance. The crowd, ranging from high society elites to media celebrities, had their eyes fixed on the couple standing at the altar. Eric Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Enterprises, looked dashing in a black tuxedo, holding the hand of Serena Chase, the bride in a luxurious wedding gown worth a fortune. Serena's smile beamed brightly, but Eric's eyes were cold, as if he were there out of duty rather than love. Just as the priest was about to declare the vows, the heavy wooden doors of the chapel burst open. A woman stormed in, her brown hair disheveled, eyes red but burning with determination. She wore a thin coat that didn't match the luxury of the venue. Her heels clicked loudly against the marble aisle, shattering the silence. "Eric!" Her voice rang out, hoarse, desperate. "My daughter is in the emergency room. The doctor said you are the only one who can save her." The crowd gasped. A wave of murmurs rippled through the guests. Serena gripped Eric's arm tighter, her face shifting from radiant to pale. Eric stood frozen, eyes locked on the woman who had just entered. Harper Lane, his ex. The woman he had once loved deeply and hated just as fiercely. "Harper?" Eric blurted, his voice a mix of shock and fury. "What the hell are you talking about?" Harper ignored the hundreds of stunned eyes on her and didn't care about Serena trembling with rage beside Eric. She walked straight to him, fists clenched as if holding on to the last of her strength. "Emma, she's an acute kidney failure. Blood type AB negative. You're the only match. Please, Eric, I'm begging you." Eric's mind spun. Emma, a daughter? He had never heard Harper mention a child. 6 years ago, Harper had vanished from his life without a word, after he discovered photos and messages Serena had shown him, proving Harper had cheated. She had betrayed him, or so he had believed. So what was this child? And why now on his wedding day? Serena clung to Eric's arm, her voice sharp and panicked. "She's crazy, Eric. Don't listen to her. This is our wedding day." But Harper didn't let Serena interrupt. She dropped to her knees before Eric, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't care what you think of me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. But Emma has only hours left. If you don't help, she'll die." The word die pierced Eric's chest like a blade. He looked into Harper's eyes, once his whole world, now filled only with despair and pain. Something in her gaze made it impossible for him to turn away. Though his heart still bore scars from the past, he couldn't ignore this plea. "Eric, don't!" Serena screamed, pulling at him. "She's just trying to ruin everything. She's jealous." But Eric released Serena's hand. He turned to the priest and said firmly, "Cancel the wedding." Then he looked at Harper, eyes unreadable. "Let's go." The chapel exploded into chaos. Reporters scrambled to snap photos, camera flashes strobing the room. Serena stood frozen, her face contorted in rage and humiliation. "Eric, you can't do this to me!" she shrieked. But Eric was already gone, racing after Harper, who ran as if every second meant her daughter's life. Outside, the rain had started. Cold droplets soaked through Harper's thin coat. Eric grabbed her arm, stopping her. "You owe me an explanation, Harper. That child. Whose is she?" Harper bit her lip, hurt flashing in her eyes at his question, but she didn't answer. She only said, "Saint. Mary's hospital. Please, hurry." Eric's Rolls Royce sped through the glistening city streets. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Harper clutched her phone, checking messages from the doctor, her hands trembling. Eric glanced at her, his mind racing with 1,000 questions. Why had she come back? Why now? And the child, could she really be his? When they reached the hospital, Harper rushed into the ER where Emma, a 5-year-old girl with chestnut hair and blue eyes that mirrored Eric's, lay motionless on a hospital bed, hooked up to machines. The doctor approached urgently. "Ms. Lane, we've stabilized her for now, but if we don't find a compatible donor within the hour, she won't survive." Eric looked at the little girl, his heart stopping. Her delicate face, pale lips, and barely open eyes. Something about her struck a chord so deep it hurt. He turned to Harper, voice raw. She's my daughter, isn't she? Harper lowered her head, tears dripping onto the floor. Please, save her first. I'll tell you everything. Once Emma is safe. Eric nodded and stepped into the lab for blood testing. When the needle pierced his arm, he felt no pain. All he could feel was the storm inside. Anger, confusion, and a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the truth wasn't what he'd once believed. 6 years ago, golden sunlight filtered through the trees in the city's Central Park, where Harper Lane and Eric Blackwell sat hand in hand on an old wooden bench. Harper, her brown hair gleaming and her smile radiant, was excitedly sharing details of a new interior design project she had just landed. Eric, a young and ambitious CEO, always made time to listen, his eyes filled with an unhidden admiration for her. What do you think about moving to a house in the suburbs? Eric asked suddenly, his voice soft but sincere. A place with a garden, where you can grow flowers, and where our kids can run around? Harper blushed, giving him a playful punch on the shoulder. Kids? Are you skipping the proposal part, Mr. Blackwell? Eric laughed and pulled her into his arms. A proposal? Sure, but you have to promise you'll say yes the moment I get on one knee. He kissed her forehead gently, and in that moment, the world seemed to shrink down to just the two of them. Harper never imagined happiness could be so complete. She had grown up in a modest family, not wealthy by any means, but Eric had never made her feel the difference. He loved her independence, creativity, and warm heart. And Harper adored his steadfastness and how he always protected the ones he loved. They had plans for a shared future, an engagement in the fall when leaves painted the park in gold, and a small, intimate wedding with family and close friends. But neither of them knew that from a dark corner, a pair of jealous eyes was watching them burn with love. Serena Chase, Harper's best friend since college, always wore a bright smile by Harper's side, but her heart was cracking. Serena had fallen for Eric the moment Harper introduced him to their friend group. She was drawn to his strength, intelligence, and the powerful aura he carried. But Eric only had eyes for Harper, and that drove Serena deeper into obsession. One rainy afternoon, Harper sat in her small apartment, hands trembling as she held a pregnancy test. 2 red lines stared back at her. She was overwhelmed, both terrified and overjoyed. She imagined Eric smiling, embracing her, the two of them planning for their first child. But before she told Eric, Harper wanted to share the news with Serena, the woman she had always considered a sister. Serena came over that night with a bottle of wine and a bright smile. "Come on, spill it. What's got you glowing like this?" she asked, plopping down on the couch. Harper took a deep breath and reached for Serena's hand. "Serena, I'm pregnant. It's Eric's." Serena's smile froze. For a split second, her eyes flashed with jealousy and pain, but she quickly masked it with a tight hug. "Oh my God, Harper, that's amazing. Eric is going to lose his mind with joy." But as Harper turned away to grab water, Serena clenched her wine glass, her nails digging deep into her palm. A dark plan began to form in her mind. If Harper had Eric's baby, she would lose him forever. But if Harper stopped being the perfect woman in Eric's eyes, what then? A few days later, Serena set her plan in motion. She reached out to one of Harper's former co-workers, a man who had once tried to flirt with Harper, but had been firmly rejected. With a hefty bribe, Serena convinced him to send ambiguous messages to Harper's phone, faking a secret affair between them. She even hired a professional photographer to snap staged photos of Harper and the co-workers standing close together at a company event, editing the images to make them look intimate. Serena timed everything carefully so Eric would accidentally discover the evidence. One evening, while Harper was busy wrapping up a project, Serena invited Eric to a cafe under the pretense of needing to talk. She pretended to be worried, placing her phone face up on the table, just in time for a fake message from Harper's number to flash across the screen. "Can you come over tonight? I miss you." Eric frowned, feeling like his heart was being crushed. "Serena, what is this?" he asked, his voice going cold. Serena feigned panic, quickly grabbing her phone. "Oh no, Eric, you weren't supposed to see that. I'm just worried about Harper. She's been spending a lot of time with her boss lately, and I'm not sure, but they seem really close. Then came the doctored photos, the fabricated messages, each one another stab into Eric's trust. He tried to stay calm, but the pain spread like poison. Harper, the woman he loved more than life, the one he planned a future with, had betrayed him. That night, Eric showed up at Harper's apartment. She had planned a romantic dinner to share the baby news, but the moment she opened the door, she knew something was wrong. Eric stood there, eyes icy, holding a stack of photos and his phone. "Explain," he said, voice trembling with fury. He threw the photos onto the table. "You and your boss. How long has it been going on?" Harper stared in disbelief at the photos, instantly recognizing them as manipulated moments. "Eric, no! This isn't real. I would never—" "Don't lie to me," Eric shouted, cutting her off. "I've seen everything, Harper. The texts, the pictures. You think I'm too stupid to see the truth?" Tears spilled down Harper's cheeks as she tried to grab his hand. "Eric, please listen to me. Someone is trying to sabotage us. I love you. I would never—" But Eric pulled his hand away, eyes full of hurt. "You love me? Then why sneak behind my back? Why not just be honest?" He turned away, his voice raw. "We're done, Harper." Harper collapsed to the floor, clutching her belly where their child was growing. She wanted to scream that she was pregnant, that the baby was his, but the pain and betrayal in Eric's eyes silenced her. If he didn't believe her, what was left to hold on to? The next morning, Harper packed her things and left the city without a word. To Eric, to anyone, not even Serena. She erased her digital trail, deleted phone numbers, and started over in a small town hundreds of miles away. Holding her belly, she whispered to herself that she would be strong for her child, even if her heart was shattered. Meanwhile, Serena stepped into Eric's life as the comforting friend. She listened to him, wiped his tears, and slowly wormed her way deeper into his world. Drowning in the pain of losing Harper, Eric didn't see that Serena was manipulating him every step of the way. A year later, Serena became his official girlfriend. And though Eric never loved her the way he once loved Harper, he accepted the relationship as a way to forget. But deep down, Eric never stopped wondering, did I miss something? Was the truth different from what I saw? St. Mary's Hospital was steeped in tension. The steady beeping of medical monitors echoed through the emergency room, where 5-year-old Emma Lane lay motionless on the hospital bed. Thin tubes ran from her small body to various machines, painting a heartbreaking and desperate picture. Harper Lane stood by the bed, her hands clenched into tight fists, red-eyed and unable to look away from Emma for even a second. Every fragile breath her daughter took felt like a dagger twisting in her heart. Dr. Reynolds, the head physician, entered the room with a grave expression. He glanced at Harper, then at Eric Blackwell, who had just arrived and stood in the corner with a complicated look in his eyes. "Ms. Lane," he said, voice deep but urgent, "we've stabilized Emma for now, but she's suffering from acute kidney failure. Her blood type is AB negative, which is extremely rare. If we don't find a compatible donor in the next few hours, I'm afraid we'll lose her." Harper felt her head spin. She had known Emma's blood type was rare, exactly like Eric's. That was why she had stormed into his wedding, despite the pain and humiliation. She had no other choice. He's a match," Harper whispered, her voice trembling as she looked at Eric. "Doctor, please, test him now." Eric stepped forward, still holding on to the suspicion and anger from their confrontation at the chapel. But as he looked at Emma, a strange feeling rose in his chest. The fragile little girl, her pale lips and half-shut eyes, looked like an angel slowly fading. He couldn't deny the strange familiarity in her face. The delicate eyebrows, the small nose, and the soft brown curls. Just like him as a child. "All right," Eric said, voice firm but visibly shaken. "Run the test. If I'm a match, I'll donate." Dr. Reynolds nodded and led Eric to a nearby lab. Harper wanted to follow, but her legs felt like they were bolted to the floor. She couldn't leave Emma's side. She leaned down, gently holding her daughter's tiny hand, whispering, "I'm here, baby. Your daddy's here too. You're going to be okay." In the lab, Eric sat in a chair, his shirt sleeve rolled up, revealing his muscular arm. A nurse gently inserted a needle into his vein, and dark red blood flowed into the vial. Eric didn't feel the prick. His mind was a storm of emotion. Harper had said Emma was her daughter, but she hadn't answered when he asked if the child was his. Memories from 6 years ago flooded back. Harper's supposed betrayal, the photos and messages Serena had shown him, and Harper disappearing without a word. He had believed she was a liar, but now looking at Emma, he couldn't stop the doubts from creeping in. If Emma was his, why had Harper said nothing? Why keep it from him for all these years? The test results came back quickly. Dr. Reynolds returned, looking visibly relieved. Mr. Blackwell, your blood type is AB negative, and the compatibility is perfect. We can begin the transfusion immediately. Eric nodded, saying nothing. He was brought back to the emergency room, where a blood bag had already been prepared for Emma. Harper stood silently as Eric sat beside the bed. She wanted to say something, thank you, I'm sorry, or even the truth, but the words were caught in her throat. All she could do was lower her head as silent tears fell. The transfusion lasted nearly an hour. Eric never took his eyes off Emma, watching for any small changes in her face. Slowly, color returned to her cheeks, and her breathing became more stable. Dr. Reynolds checked her vitals and gave a satisfied nod. She's responding well. If things continue like this, she'll pull through. Harper broke down in tears, hugging Emma tightly. Thank you, Eric, she whispered through choked sobs. I don't know what to say. Eric looked at her, his eyes still full of the hurt from the past. You don't need to say anything right now, he said coldly, though his voice wavered. I did it for the child. The next morning, Emma woke up. Her bright blue eyes opened slowly, scanning the room with a weak curiosity. Harper sat beside her, holding her hand, smiling through tears. Hi, baby, she said, gently stroking Emma's hair. You really scared me. Emma gave a faint smile, then her eyes settled on Eric, who stood in the corner. He hadn't left the hospital all night. The little girl tilted her head slightly and asked softly but clearly, Are you my daddy? The question cut through the air like a bullet. Harper froze, her grip tightening around Emma's hand. Eric felt his heart pound. He walked toward the bed, eyes locked on Emma's face. Those eyes, those blue eyes that matched his, seemed to look straight into his soul. Emma, sweetie, Harper began, but her voice faltered. She didn't know what to say. The truth was too heavy, and she didn't want to hurt her daughter, or trigger Eric's fury. Eric knelt by the bed, bringing himself to eye level with Emma. He smiled gently, trying to mask the turmoil inside. I'm someone who cares about you very much, he said softly. I'm here to help you get better, okay? Emma nodded, though her eyes still held curiosity. Thank you, mister, she whispered, then closed her eyes again and drifted back to sleep. Eric stood, turning to Harper. You owe me an answer, Harper, he said, his voice low but sharp. She's my daughter, isn't she? Harper bowed her head, tears spilling again. Eric, She paused, taking a deep breath. I didn't want to hurt you again. After everything that happened, I thought you wouldn't want to know. Wouldn't want to know? Eric nearly shouted, but lowered his voice so as not to wake Emma. If she's mine, you had no right to keep her from me. 6 years, Harper, 6 years. Harper looked up, her eyes filled with pain. You think I wanted to keep her from you? You didn't believe me. You thought I cheated, and you pushed me away. I was pregnant and alone. I did everything I could to protect Emma. Eric stepped back, Harper's words hitting him like a punch to the chest. He remembered that night, the photos, the messages, his blinding rage. He hadn't given Harper a chance to explain. But now, looking at Emma, he couldn't deny the truth staring him in the face. She was a part of him, and he had missed the first 5 years of her life. We'll talk about this later, Eric said, voice rough. But I need the truth, all of it. Harper nodded, wiping her tears. I'll tell you everything, once Emma has fully recovered. Over the next few days, Emma began to improve. She talked more, laughed more, and every time Eric visited, her face lit up. He brought her a giant teddy bear, sat by her bedside, and told her stories. Harper watched from a distance, her heart aching. She saw the way Emma looked at Eric, like she had been waiting for him all along. And she saw how Eric was changing, from a cold, closed-off man into someone gentler, especially around their daughter. But with that change came growing suspicion. If Emma was his daughter, why hadn't Harper fought to tell him? And if she hadn't betrayed him, then who had set him up? His mind turned back to Serena, how she had accidentally shown him the photos, how she was always there to comfort him after Harper left. A dark suspicion began to form in his mind. One afternoon while Emma was napping, Eric sat beside Harper. "I need to know, Harper," he said, voice firm but calm. "What really happened 6 years ago? If you didn't betray me, then why did I see what I saw?" Harper looked at him, eyes full of pain but also a glimmer of resolve. "I never betrayed you, Eric. Never. But for you to understand, I need time, and I need to be sure Emma is completely safe first." Eric nodded, though his patience was thinning. He knew that whatever the truth was, it would change everything, not just between him and Harper, but also between him and Serena, who was still waiting, expecting him to return, as her fiancé. St. Mary's Hospital had become a place of painful memories, but also hope for Harper Lane. When the doctor announced that Emma could be discharged, Harper felt a wave of relief mixed with worry. Her small apartment in the suburbs, with its worn-out walls and cramped space, was far from ideal for a recovering child like Emma. But it was all she had, and she was determined to make it safe for her daughter. Eric Blackwell arrived at the hospital the morning of Emma's discharge, looking sharp as ever in a black suit, though his eyes had softened. He glanced at Emma, who was holding her mother's hand and smiling weakly, then turned to Harper. "You and Emma should come stay at my estate," he said firmly. "I have space, medical equipment, and a private nurse to take care of her. It's the best option." Harper immediately shook her head, her gaze tired but resolute. "No, Eric. Thank you, but Emma and I will go home. We've made it on our own for 5 years, and I don't want to depend on you." Eric frowned, disappointment flickering in his eyes. "Harper, this isn't about you or me. It's about Emma. She almost died. Are you really going to risk her health just to prove how strong you are?" His words cut deep, but Harper didn't waver. She looked him straight in the eyes. "I'm not proving anything. I just want Emma to recover in a place that feels safe to her, not in some unfamiliar mansion. Our home may be small, but it's her home." Eric wanted to argue, but the determination in Harper's eyes stopped him. He sighed and nodded. "All right, but I won't stay on the sidelines. I want to see Emma, and I will help take care of her, whether you approve or not." Harper nodded, her voice quiet. "Thank you, Eric, but we need clear boundaries. I don't want things getting complicated." Eric didn't reply. He just looked at her for a long moment before turning away. Harper knew letting Eric into Emma's life was a gamble, but with the way Emma had already bonded with him, she couldn't keep him out. Harper's apartment sat in a modest neighborhood, with faded white walls and a small window overlooking a tree-lined street. Inside, the space was cozy. Emma's crayon drawings covered the walls, and a corner was filled with toys. Emma was happy to return to her familiar room, even though she was still weak and needed plenty of rest. Eric began stopping by regularly, almost every day after work. He brought small gifts, a teddy bear, a puzzle set, a picture book, and spent hours playing with Emma. At first, Harper watched from a distance, trying to maintain boundaries, but she couldn't help noticing the change in Eric. One afternoon, Harper stood at the kitchen door, watching Eric sit on the living room floor with Emma. She was showing him how to draw a cat on paper, her voice cheerful and full of energy. "Uncle Eric, cat ears should be round like this, not long like dog ears." Eric laughed, a warm, genuine sound Harper thought she'd never hear again. "Okay, teacher Emma, I'll redo it. But if I mess it up again, you have to forgive me. Deal?" Emma nodded, beaming. Harper realized just how much Emma looked like Eric, the curve of her smile, the sparkle in her eyes. She was his miniature, from the soft brown curls to the way she furrowed her brow in concentration. Harper's heart ached, with both joy and sorrow. Eric saw it too. Every time he looked at Emma, he saw himself, not just in her appearance, but in her mannerisms. Emma liked organizing things just so, much like how he managed his company. She was stubborn but sweet, and the way she trusted him awakened a sense of responsibility he had never known. He was learning how to be a father, even though the truth about Emma was still a mystery Harper hadn't yet confirmed. One evening after playing with Emma, Eric stayed later than usual. Emma had fallen asleep, and Harper was washing dishes in the kitchen. Eric walked in, picked up a dish towel, and made her jump. "You don't have to do that," she said, avoiding his gaze. "I want to help," Eric replied, voice low. "You've been doing too much on your own, Harper. Let me share the load. Just a little." They worked in silence, only the sound of running water and clinking dishes filling the air. The atmosphere was tense, yet oddly familiar. It felt like the echo of a life they once had. Harper tried to suppress the emotion rising inside her, but Eric's presence, his familiar cologne, his deep voice, made it impossible to ignore. "You know," Eric said suddenly, "Emma looks so much like me. Not just her face, but the way she smiles, the way she's stubborn. I can't stop thinking, she's my daughter." Harper froze, her heart pounding. She turned toward him, eyes filled with pain. "Eric, I told you. When Emma's better, I'll tell you everything. But for now, please, don't push me." Eric looked at her, his eyes a mix of hurt and longing. "I'm not pushing you, Harper, but I can't pretend I don't see it. She calls me uncle, but every time she looks at me, I feel like I'm a part of her. And of you." His words were like a gentle flame, melting the ice around Harper's heart. She turned away, wiping her tears. "You've changed, Eric. I didn't expect you to be so good with Emma. But I'm still afraid. Afraid that once the truth comes out, everything will fall apart again." Eric set down the plate and stepped closer. "I can't promise it'll be easy, but I can promise I won't walk away from Emma. And I want to understand what happened to us." Harper nodded, not daring to meet his eyes. She knew that moment, however small, was the first step toward confronting the past. In the days that followed, Eric continued visiting Emma. He learned how to tie her hair, even if the result was always a tangled mess that made her giggle. He told her stories and once even sang a lullaby his mother used to sing to him, making Harper cry quietly from the hallway. Emma, with her innocent heart, seemed to sense the connection between her mother and Uncle Eric. One evening, as Harper tucked her in, Emma whispered, "Mommy, I want Uncle Eric to stay forever. He makes you smile more." Harper froze, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You like Uncle Eric, huh?" she asked, voice tight. Emma nodded. "I think he's like a daddy. Mommy, is he my daddy?" Harper gave a soft, sad smile and stroked Emma's hair. "Uncle Eric loves you very much, and that's what matters most, isn't it?" Emma nodded again, but her eyes still held curiosity. Harper stepped out of the room with a heavy heart. Under Emma's innocent gaze, she and Eric were slowly softening. Little moments, a shared laugh, a lingering glance, or a fleeting touch as they cared for Emma, wove invisible threads pulling them closer. But they both knew the truth still hung like a fragile wall between them, and it would take only a single push to either reunite them or break them apart forever. Serena Chase stepped into the offices of Blackwell Enterprises with her usual confident stride, but inside a storm of jealousy and fear was raging. Her form-fitting red dress accentuated her flawless figure, yet the cold glint in her eyes betrayed her unease. Ever since Harper Lane had crashed her wedding to Eric, destroying everything, Serena had felt her place in Eric's life slipping away. She had spent 6 years building her relationship with him, slowly weaving herself into his heart after forcing Harper out. But now Harper and little Emma had returned, threatening to unravel it all. Serena had heard from a close staffer that Eric was frequently visiting Harper's apartment to spend time with Emma. The thought of Eric, her obsession, smiling at Harper or looking at a child that was clearly his with tenderness, made Serena feel sick. She had to act, and fast. One afternoon, Serena showed up unannounced at Harper's apartment. Harper was wiping the kitchen counter while Emma sat on the sofa coloring. The doorbell rang, and when Harper opened the door, she froze. Serena stood there, her smile fake, her gaze icy. "Harper," Serena said sweetly, her voice laced with meaning. "It's been a while. I just wanted to check in on you and your daughter." Harper's hands tightened, unease rising. "We're fine, Serena. Thanks for your concern, but I'm busy right now." Serena stepped inside without being invited. her eyes scanning the small apartment with disdain. She paused when she saw Emma, who looked up with an innocent smile. "Hi, lady," Emma chirped. "Are you Mommy's friend?" Serena clutched her purse tighter, her smile stiff. "Yes, I'm an old friend of your mom's." Then she turned to Harper, voice lowering. "She's adorable. Looks an awful lot like Eric." Harper felt a chill run through her. She stepped forward, positioning herself between Serena and Emma. "Serena, if you have something to say, say it. Don't play games." Serena smirked, her eyes flashing with hostility. "Oh, Harper, I just want to remind you that Eric is mine. He'll never come back to you, not even if you use that child to pull him in. I suggest you leave, like you did 6 years ago." Harper trembled with fury but kept her voice low so Emma wouldn't hear. "You don't get to tell me what to do, Serena. And if you think Eric is a possession to be owned, then you've already lost." Serena clenched her teeth but didn't argue. She turned and walked out, leaving a thick tension behind. Harper shut the door, hugging Emma tightly, but deep down, she knew Serena wouldn't stop. She was planning something, and Harper could only hope Eric would see the truth before it was too late. A few days later, Serena arrived at Eric's office. She picked her moment carefully, right after a tense board meeting when Eric was alone in his office. Serena walked in, eyes red as if she had been crying, one hand resting meaningfully on her stomach. Eric looked up, frowning. "Serena? What is it?" She closed the door and stepped toward him, voice trembling. "Eric, I don't know how to say this. I'm pregnant. With your child." Eric froze, the floor seeming to shift beneath him. "What? What are you talking about?" Serena sat in the chair across from him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I just came from the doctor. I'm 8 weeks along. I know the wedding fell apart and everything's been chaos. But I love you. We can start over. With this baby." Eric felt lightheaded. He stood and began pacing. "Serena, are you sure we were careful? How could this happen?" Serena bowed her head, feigning embarrassment. "I was surprised too, Eric. But the doctor confirmed it. It's real. You're going to be a father, and I need you." Eric sat back down, rubbing his temples. He didn't love Serena, not the way he had loved Harper, but he had promised to marry her. And if she really was pregnant with his child, he couldn't just walk away. Still, something in Serena's voice, in her eyes, made him uneasy. "I want to see the test results," he said firmly, "and I want to meet your doctor." Serena flinched but quickly masked her panic. "Of course, Eric. I'll arrange everything. But please, trust me. I'd never lie to you." Eric nodded, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. He remembered the photos and messages Serena had shown him 6 years ago, the ones that had convinced him Harper cheated. He'd been too heartbroken to question it back then, but now with Harper and Emma back in his life, he began to wonder if Serena was ever truly honest. In the days that followed, Serena clung to Eric more than ever. She called constantly, showed up at the office with healthy pregnancy meals, and tried to pull him into conversations about their family's future. But Eric grew increasingly distant. He still visited Emma daily, and the more time he spent with her, the more convinced he became that she was his daughter. The resemblance was uncanny, not just in appearance, but in the little things. The way Emma furrowed her brow when concentrating, how she sorted her toys by color. Just like him. One evening, while Eric was playing chess with Emma in Harper's apartment, Serena barged in. She pounded on the door, and when Harper opened it, Serena stormed in, screeching, "Eric, what are you doing here? I'm your fiancé. I'm carrying your baby. You can't keep running to her and that child." Harper stood frozen, her eyes flicking to Eric. "Pregnant?" she repeated, voice shaking. Eric stood up, his eyes ice cold. "Serena, calm down and leave. I'm not making a scene in front of Emma." Emma, sitting on the sofa, stared wide-eyed at the scene. She gripped Harper's hand and whispered, "Mommy, why is that lady yelling?" Serena turned toward Emma, her eyes flashing with jealousy. "You shouldn't even be here, little girl. Eric belongs to me, not your mother." "Enough!" Eric shouted, stepping in front of Harper and Emma. "Serena, you've gone too far. I'll verify everything. If you're lying, you'll regret it." Serena trembled but held her ground. "Go ahead, Eric. You'll see I'm telling the truth." She stormed out, but she knew her time was running out. Eric didn't waste time. He contacted an independent physician and demanded Serena provide her medical records. Serena tried to stall, but under pressure, she reluctantly brought him to her personal OBGYN, Dr. Carter. During the visit, Serena clung to Eric's arm, playing the anxious mother-to-be, but Dr. Carter, a middle-aged man with a troubled expression, couldn't keep the truth hidden for long. When Eric asked to see the test results, Dr. Carter cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact. "Mr. Blackwell, I have to admit there's no pregnancy. Ms. Chase is not expecting. She asked me to confirm it, but I can't keep lying." Serena's face went pale. She jumped to her feet, screaming, "You're lying! You examined me! Eric, you have to believe me!" But Eric had heard enough. He stood slowly, eyes filled with contempt. "Serena, you've crossed the line. I don't want to see you again. Get out of my life." Serena broke down, collapsing at his feet, clutching his leg. "Please, Eric, I love you. I did all of this for you." Eric shook her off, his voice ice cold. "You did it for yourself, and now I'm going to find out what else you've been hiding." He turned and walked out of the office, leaving Serena sobbing in a heap of her own despair. Eric Blackwell sat alone in his expansive office, the lights of the city casting long shadows across his tense face through the glass windows. Serena's lie about being pregnant had shocked him, but more than that, it reignited the deep doubts he'd buried about the past. 6 years ago, Serena was the one who had brought him the photos and messages proving Harper had cheated. At the time, he was too hurt, too furious to question them. But now, after seeing Emma, who bore an uncanny resemblance to him, and witnessing the honesty in Harper's eyes, Eric could no longer ignore it. He needed the truth, and he would find it, no matter the cost. Eric hired a team of private investigators, some of the best in the business, to dig into Serena's past and verify everything about the evidence from 6 years ago. The photos, the texts, the people involved. While waiting for results, he tried to stay calm during his visits with Emma. But every time he looked at her, his heart clenched. If Emma was his daughter, and if Serena had destroyed his and Harper's lives, she would pay for it. It took just a week for the investigators to bring him answers. They sat across from Eric in the conference room and placed a thick file in front of him. Marcus, the team lead, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s, spoke with certainty. "Mr. Blackwell, we verified the origins of the evidence from 6 years ago. Everything was fabricated." Eric's fists clenched, fury boiling in his veins. "Fabricated? What do you mean?" Marcus slid a set of printed photos and transcripts across the table. The images were professionally doctored using photo editing software. We tracked down the person who did it, a freelance editor hired by Ms. Serena Chase. As for the messages, they were sent from a prepaid phone number, also purchased by Ms. Chase. She paid one of Ms. Harper Lane's former colleagues, someone who once tried to pursue her but was rejected, to send vague messages and appear overly familiar. Serena then used all of it to construct a fake affair. Eric flipped through the pages, each line slicing deeper into the guilt that gripped his chest. He remembered that night, how he yelled at Harper, denied her the chance to speak, and cast her out of his life. He had trusted Serena, considered her a friend, and now it was all clear. She had orchestrated the whole thing to steal him away. "Is there more?" Eric asked, his voice hoarse. Marcus nodded. "We also discovered that Mrs. Chase kept tabs on Ms. Lane after she left the city. She hired someone to provide regular updates on her whereabouts, including her pregnancy and the birth of her child. Mrs. Chase knew about Emma a long time ago. She just never told you." Eric shot to his feet, slamming his hand on the table. "That's enough. I want to see Serena. Now." Eric arranged to meet Serena at a quiet restaurant downtown, somewhere public, but private enough that she couldn't cause a scene. Serena arrived looking confident, dressed in a dark blue dress, her smile bright as if nothing had happened. But when she saw the cold fury in Eric's eyes, her smile began to fade. "Eric, I'm so glad you wanted to talk," Serena began sweetly. "I know the pregnancy lie hurt you, but we can—" "Don't!" Eric cut her off, his voice razor sharp. He slid the file across the table, his eyes locked on hers. "Open it. Read it." Serena hesitated, her fingers trembling as she opened the file. With every page she turned, her face paled. Her composure cracked, and though she tried to keep calm, her shaking hands betrayed her. Eric, this is a misunderstanding. Someone's trying to frame me. Eric leaned in, eyes blazing. A misunderstanding? You hired someone to edit photos, bought a burner phone, and paid a man to destroy Harper's life? You knew Emma was my daughter, and you kept her from me for 6 years. 6 years! And you dare call this a misunderstanding? Serena jumped to her feet, her voice high-pitched, bordering on hysterical. Fine, yes, I did it. I did it all. I loved you, Eric. I loved you from the moment Harper introduced us. But you never saw me. You only ever saw her. What did she have that I didn't? She's just some ordinary girl. She didn't deserve you. Eric stood too, towering over her, his voice low but thunderous. Harper has something you never will, a heart. You manipulated me, destroyed my family, and now you want to justify it? Because of you, I lost 5 years with my daughter. You don't deserve forgiveness. Serena laughed, a crazed sound through tears. Family? You call that a family? Harper left you without a word. I was the one who stayed, Eric. I was the one who loved you, took care of you. Eric shook his head, now looking at her with nothing but contempt. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of owning me. But I'm not a possession, Serena. We're done. You're fired from the company, and I don't ever want to see you again. If you go near Harper or Emma, I will make you regret it. Serena collapsed into her seat, her tears falling freely now, stripped of her pride. She knew it was over, and there was no way back. Eric turned and walked out, leaving her to sit alone in the ruins of her own lies. Meanwhile, Harper knew nothing of the confrontation. She was focused on taking care of Emma and preparing for the day her daughter would fully recover. Their small apartment was now filled with drawings Emma made with Eric, the toys he had brought over, and memories Harper tried not to dwell on. But deep down, she knew their time in the city was running out. Once Emma was better, she planned to leave, start a new life in a place without Eric, without the painful memories. One afternoon, Harper sat beside Emma, helping her color a picture. Emma looked up and asked, Mommy, isn't Uncle Eric coming today? I want him to tell the pirate ship story again. Harper smiled sadly, brushing hair from her daughter's face. Uncle Eric's busy, sweetheart, but I'll tell you the story, okay? Emma nodded, though her eyes betrayed her disappointment. Harper's heart twisted. She knew Emma had grown attached to Eric, and she feared that leaving would hurt her daughter all over again. But staying meant facing a past Harper wasn't sure she could bear. That night, Eric stood outside Harper's apartment, his heart heavy. He had cut ties with Serena completely, but the truth of what she'd done still weighed heavily on him. He had been wrong not to trust Harper, and he had lost 6 years of a life he could have had with her and Emma. He knocked, and when Harper opened the door, he simply said, Harper, I know the truth now. Serena was behind everything. I need to talk to you. Harper stared at him, eyes filled with shock and fear. She didn't know where this truth would lead, but she knew this moment would change everything. For her, for Eric, and for Emma. Serena Chase sat in her luxurious apartment, the dim lighting unable to conceal the chaos swirling in her mind. The days since Eric had confronted her and cut her off completely had passed like a waking nightmare. He had fired her from the company, erased her from his life, and all because of Harper Lane and that little girl, Emma. Serena clutched her wineglass tightly, her fingernails digging into her palm until she bled. She couldn't accept the reality that after all she had done, lying, manipulating, sacrificing, she still lost Eric. A dark thought began to form in her fractured mind. If Emma were gone, Eric would no longer have a reason to stay close to Harper. If Emma disappeared, everything could return to how it once was. She had lost all reason. Everything was gone. Her reputation, her position, the man she loved obsessively. In her deranged grief, she decided to act. Emma, the child Serena blamed for all her misery, would have to pay. That morning, Harper took Emma to the park near their home for some fresh air. Though still recovering from her hospital stay, Emma had regained much of her strength. She held her mother's hand, skipping along with her little pink knit hat, bouncing as she walked. Harper smiled at the joy on her daughter's face, but a heaviness still weighed on her heart. She knew Eric had learned the truth about Serena and wanted to talk about the past. But Harper wasn't ready. She was afraid those old wounds would start bleeding again if reopened. At the park, Harper let Emma play on the slide while she sat on a nearby bench, checking messages from Emma's doctor. For just a brief moment, she looked away, and that's when a black van pulled up near the playground. Serena, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, moved swiftly like a ghost. She approached Emma, pretending to be someone familiar. "Hi, Emma," she said sweetly. "Uncle Eric asked me to come get you. Want to go see him?" Emma, innocent and trusting, lit up at the mention of Eric and nodded. Before Harper could realize what was happening, Serena took Emma's hand and led her into the van. Harper looked up just in time to see the vehicle speed off, kicking up a cloud of dust. "Emma!" she screamed, running into the street, but the van had vanished. Trembling, Harper fumbled for her phone, nearly dropping it as she called the police. "My daughter! Someone took my daughter! Please, you have to help!" She sobbed, her voice barely coherent. She then called Eric, gasping for breath. "Eric! Emma! Serena took her! I saw her! Please, you have to find her!" At his office, Eric felt the blood drain from his face. He shot to his feet, knocking papers to the floor. "Harper, stay calm. I'll find her. I promise." He ended the call and immediately summoned his security team and contacted the police, providing every detail he had on Serena. Abandoning all else, he raced out of the office, his heart pounding with a fear he'd never known before. Emma, his daughter, was in danger, and he wasn't going to lose her. The police launched a full-scale search, tracking Serena using cell data and traffic cameras. But Eric didn't sit back. He led his own private team, using every resource he had. Meanwhile, Harper stayed at the station, sobbing and praying. She blamed herself for looking away, even for a second. "I'm her mother," she whispered, hands over her face. "I should have protected her." An officer gently laid a hand on her shoulder. "Ms. Lane, we're doing everything we can. Mr. Blackwell is working with us. We will find your daughter." But Harper couldn't stop shaking. She knew Serena had lost control and feared that in her madness, she might truly hurt Emma. Serena had taken Emma to an abandoned house near the coast, property she'd once bought under a fake name as a secret hideout. The house was crumbling, with moldy walls and broken windows, standing isolated on the cliffs beside crashing waves. Emma curled up in a corner, clutching the teddy bear Eric had given her, eyes wide with fear. "I want to go home," she whimpered. "Where's Mommy? Where's Uncle Eric?" Serena paced back and forth, her hair a tangled mess, her eyes wild. "Be quiet," she shrieked, making Emma cry harder. "You ruined everything. If it weren't for you, Eric would have married me. You and your mother stole him from me." Emma sobbed louder, hugging her bear. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just want Mommy and Uncle Eric." Serena froze, panting. A small part of her knew she had crossed a line, but jealousy and heartbreak had completely clouded her judgment. She had booked plane tickets and was planning to flee the country with Emma, to a place no one could find them. But Emma, scared and deprived of food and water, was weakening. Her skin turned pale, her breathing grew shallow, signs of dehydration and exhaustion. After hours of tracking, Eric's security team found a lead from a traffic camera near the coast. He immediately led a convoy toward the house, joined by police units. By the time they arrived, night had fallen, and the roar of the sea drowned out all other sounds. Eric leapt from the car, his heart pounding. He didn't care about danger. He only thought of Emma. Police surrounded the house, but Eric didn't wait for a command. He kicked open the rotting wooden door and rushed inside. There stood Serena, hovering over Emma's still form on the floor. "Serena!" Eric roared, charging forward. Startled, Serena tried to shield Emma, but she was too weak to resist. "Don't come any closer," she screamed, voice cracking. "You can't take her. She's why you left me." Eric didn't stop. He shoved Serena aside and dropped to his knees beside Emma. Her tiny body was cold, her breathing faint. "Emma, sweetheart, it's Daddy," he whispered, cradling her in his arms. "You're safe now. Daddy's here. I'll never let you go again." Police burst in and restrained Serena, now a broken shell of herself, sobbing and screaming. "Eric, please, I love you. I just wanted us to be together." But Eric didn't look back. He carried Emma outside and handed her to the waiting medics. They immediately began treatment: fluids, vitals, quick assessment. She was dehydrated and traumatized, but still had a chance to recover. Eric held her hand the entire time, refusing to leave her side. His eyes burned with pain and fierce resolve. Harper was rushed to the scene by the police. When she saw Emma on the stretcher, being tended to by paramedics, she ran to her, crying uncontrollably. "Emma, baby, it's Mommy! I'm here!" She hugged her daughter tightly, her tears soaking Emma's hair. Eric stood nearby, watching mother and child, his heart breaking and healing all at once. He knelt beside Harper, resting a hand on her shoulder. "She's safe now, Harper. I promised I'd bring her back." Harper looked up, eyes brimming with gratitude and lingering pain. "Thank you, Eric. I don't even know what to say." Eric offered a soft smile, gently stroking Emma's hair. "You don't have to say anything. I just needed her to be safe." He leaned in and whispered to the barely conscious girl, "Daddy's here, sweetheart. You're safe now, and I'm never letting you go again." Serena was arrested, charged with kidnapping and endangering a child's life. She was taken away in handcuffs, her eyes vacant, as if all life had drained from her. Eric never looked at her again. His only focus now was Emma and Harper, the family he had once lost, but was now determined to reclaim. As Emma was transported to the hospital for further care, Harper sat at her daughter's bedside, clutching her small hand. Eric stood at the doorway watching them, his heart heavy, but also filled with hope. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but this time, no lies, no one would tear them apart again. In the days following the terrifying kidnapping, Harper Lane's small apartment was filled with relief, but also quiet unrest. 5-year-old Emma, with her soft brown curls and bright blue eyes, had nearly made a full recovery. She was back to running around, coloring drawings, and chatting away with innocent joy about Uncle Eric, whom she now mentioned with unmistakable affection. But inside Harper, a difficult decision was slowly taking shape. She knew that staying in this city, so close to Eric, would only complicate things. The painful memories, the truths of their past, they could pull them all back into a cycle of hurt. Harper stood before the mirror, staring at her tired reflection. She had survived 6 years on her own, raising Emma without Eric. And now that he had become an irreplaceable part of their daughter's life, Harper felt like she no longer belonged in his world. Eric was a billionaire, a man of power, and she was just a single mother, scarred by the past. She decided that once Emma was completely healthy, they would leave, start a new life somewhere far away, where the ghosts of their past couldn't follow. One morning, Harper began packing. She folded Emma's clothes carefully into a suitcase, including the pretty little dresses Eric had bought. Emma sat on the bed, hugging her teddy bear, her head tilted curiously. "Mommy, where are we going? I want to stay here with Uncle Eric." Harper paused, pain stabbing her heart. She knelt before her daughter, brushing back her curls. "Sweetheart, we're going somewhere new, somewhere you can play and stay healthy. Uncle Eric, he's very busy. You know that." Emma frowned, clearly unhappy. "But Uncle Eric said he likes being with me. He'll be sad if we leave." Harper forced a smile, pulling Emma into her arms. "I know, baby. But sometimes, leaving is the best thing for everyone." She didn't say it out loud, but in her heart, she feared that Eric might hurt her again, or worse, abandon Emma. She couldn't stay. Eric had no idea Harper was planning to leave. He visited the apartment almost daily, bringing small gifts and spending time with Emma. But he sensed Harper growing more distant. She avoided his gaze, answered curtly, and always kept an invisible wall between them. Eric knew that if he didn't act soon, he would lose them. This time, for good. One afternoon, he arrived earlier than usual, holding a bouquet of white daisies, Harper's favorite flower from 6 years ago. When she opened the door, her expression flickered with surprise. "Eric, you're early." "I wanted to take Emma to the park," he said with a smile. "And maybe you too, if you'd like." Harper hesitated, but when she saw Emma's eager eyes, she nodded. "All right, but just for a little while." They went to the neighborhood park, the very place where Emma had once been taken. But now, under golden sunlight and filled with children's laughter, it felt bright and safe. Emma ran on the grass, chasing a butterfly, while Harper and Eric sat quietly on a wooden bench. The silence between them was heavy, as if both were bracing for something. "Harper," Eric finally said, his voice low, "you're planning to leave, aren't you?" Harper stiffened, turning to him. "How did you know?" Eric gave a sad smile. "I saw the way you look at Emma, the way you've been packing. You think I wouldn't notice? I know you, Harper. I once knew you better than anyone." Harper lowered her head, silent tears falling. "Eric, I can't stay. I don't want to hurt you or Emma. You have your life, and I just want her to be happy." Eric reached for her hand, eyes burning with emotion. "Emma's happiness is here, with both of us, and mine is with you. Harper, I was wrong not to trust you 6 years ago. I let Serena destroy what we had, but I'm not letting you go again." Harper shook her head, her voice trembling. "You don't understand, Eric. I kept Emma from you. I left without a fight. How can you ever forgive me?" Eric stood and gently pulled her up. He led her into the garden in the middle of the park, where Emma was playing. In the sunlight, he dropped to one knee and pulled out a simple but glimmering silver ring from his jacket pocket. His eyes met hers, full of love, full of resolve. "Harper Lane," he said, voice shaking with emotion, "you crashed my wedding and turned my world upside down. So now, you have to be my bride." Harper gasped, tears streaming down her face. She covered her mouth in shock. "Eric, are you sure? Even after I left, even after I hid Emma from you?" Eric smiled, squeezing her hand. "I'm sure, because back then, I didn't trust you, but now I trust you with my life. I want us to be a family, Harper. I want to be Emma's dad and your husband." From a distance, Emma noticed something happening. She ran over, her wide eyes sparkling. "Mommy, what's Uncle Eric doing? Is he asking you to marry him? I saw this on TV." Harper burst out laughing through her tears, pulling Emma into a hug. Eric stood, embracing both of them. "Emma," he said gently, "I want to ask you too. Do you want me to be your dad?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, hugging them tighter. "I have a mommy and a daddy now," she squealed, her laughter echoing through the garden. Harper looked at Eric, her eyes no longer afraid, but full of hope. "All right, Eric Blackwell," she whispered. "I'll be your bride." Eric leaned in, kissed her forehead, then pressed a soft kiss to Emma's cheek. Under the sun, the three of them stood together, wrapped in one another's arms, as if the pain of the past had melted away, replaced by a future finally whole. In the days that followed, Harper and Emma moved into Eric's estate, not for the luxury, but because it was where they would build their home. Eric taught Emma how to ride a bike, while Harper redesigned the garden, planting her favorite white daisies. They didn't rush the wedding, but the ring on Harper's hand was a quiet promise that they had found their way back to each other. One evening after Emma had gone to sleep, Harper and Eric sat on the balcony under a sky full of stars. Eric held her hand, his voice warm and steady. "Thank you, Harper, for coming back, for giving me a second chance." Harper leaned her head on his shoulder, smiling. "Thank you for not giving up. We lost 6 years, but now we have a lifetime." They sat in silence, wrapped in the stillness of the night, knowing that no matter how painful the past had been, their future, filled with Emma, love, and trust, was theirs to hold. 1 year after the terrifying kidnapping, the gentle autumn sun bathed the garden behind Eric Blackwell's estate, where a simple but love-filled wedding was being prepared. White daisies, Harper's favorite flower, bloomed across the garden, interwoven with silk ribbons and twinkling lanterns. There was no luxury, no society gala, no flashing cameras, just close friends, family, and a warm space where love stood at the heart of everything. Harper stood in front of a mirror in her room, wearing a simple yet elegant wedding dress. A soft veil draped over her shoulders. As she looked at her reflection, it felt like a dream. 1 year ago, she'd thought she'd be leaving the city, taking Emma and her broken heart with her. But today, she was about to become the wife of Eric, the man she once loved, once lost, and now had found again. Emma, now 6 years old, burst into the room in a pale pink flower girl dress, her curly brown hair braided into two neat pigtails. She carried a basket full of daisies, her eyes sparkling. "Mommy, you're so beautiful," she squealed, hugging Harper tightly. "I get to throw the flowers, right? I practiced all week." Harper laughed and kissed her daughter's cheek. "You're going to be the best flower girl ever, sweetheart. Mommy and Daddy are counting on you." Emma nodded seriously, then tilted her head with curiosity. "Mommy, can I call Uncle Eric Daddy today? I've wanted to for a long time." Tears welled up in Harper's eyes, but she smiled and gently stroked Emma's hair. "Yes, sweetheart. Today and always you can call him Daddy." At the other end of the garden, Eric stood in a light gray suit, simple but effortlessly refined. He wasn't nervous, just deeply moved. 6 years ago, he'd believed love was a lie, that Harper had betrayed him, and that his heart would remain frozen. But now he was about to marry her, the woman who had saved their daughter and brought his heart back to life. He looked toward the garden where Emma ran around, tossing test petals from her basket. He smiled. She was magic, the invisible thread that had pulled him and Harper back together. The officiant, an old friend of Eric's, began the ceremony with warm words. The small gathering of about 30 guests, close friends and family, sat on ribbon-draped wooden chairs. Gentle violin music floated in the air as Emma made her entrance, tossing white daisies along the aisle. Her radiant smile and sparkling eyes made everyone chuckle at her cuteness. When Harper stepped out, holding her best friend's hand, Eric's breath caught. She looked like a dream, but it was her eyes that moved him most. They were filled with love, trust, and that familiar, playful glint he hadn't seen in 6 years. As Harper reached him, Eric leaned in and whispered, "You're stunning, Harper. I don't deserve you." Harper smiled through tears, her voice teasing. "Don't say that out loud, Mr. Blackwell. It's our wedding day." The ceremony was brief but deeply heartfelt. No flowery speeches, just raw, honest vows. Eric held Harper's hand tightly, his voice trembling. "Harper, I once lost you because I didn't trust you, but today I vow to love you, protect you, and never let anything or anyone come between us again." Harper wiped her tears, smiling. "Eric, I once thought love couldn't be repaired, but you showed me that even after pain, we can begin again. I vow to stand by you, raise our daughter with you, and love you more every single day." As they exchanged rings, Emma ran up, squeezing between them and wrapping her arms around both. "Mommy and Daddy got married," she squealed, sending the crowd into laughter and applause. Eric scooped her up into his arms, and the three of them hugged beneath the sunlight, a perfect picture of happiness. At the small reception that followed, Harper and Eric cut the cake while Emma insisted on getting the biggest slice. They danced beneath glowing lanterns, and during a slow song, Eric pulled Harper close, whispering in her ear, "Thank you for saving our daughter, Harper, and for saving my heart." Harper leaned against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. "Thank you for finding us, Eric. I never thought we'd have this day." They glanced toward Emma, now running around with other children, her face smudged with frosting. Harper smiled and hugged Eric tightly. "You know, I used to fear this happiness was just a dream, but now I know it's real." Eric kissed her forehead. "It is real, and I'll do everything to protect it." That night after the celebration, Harper and Eric tucked Emma into her new bedroom in the estate. She lay in bed hugging her teddy bear, her eyes still bright despite a big yawn. "Mommy, Daddy, can I wear my flower girl dress again tomorrow?" Eric laughed, brushing her hair gently. "No, sweetheart, but you'll have lots of pretty dresses to wear. We'll take you to the park, all right?" Emma nodded, smiling. "I like having a mommy and a daddy. I love you both so much." Harper and Eric kissed her cheeks, turned off the lights, and stepped quietly into the hallway. They looked at each other, no words needed. 6 years of pain, misunderstanding, and loss had led them here, to this quiet, powerful moment, a complete family at last. Out on the balcony beneath a sky full of stars, Eric took Harper's hand, their fingers entwined. "We lost so much time," he said softly, "but from now on, every day will be about loving and making up for it." Harper rested her head on his shoulder, smiling. "We didn't lose it, Eric. We just took the long road to find each other again." Beneath the stars, they stood together, knowing that no matter how painful the past had been, their future, with Emma, with love, and with trust, would forever be a happiness belated, but complete.